If you're like me, you like soldering, and I really like soldering through hull. So much so that I really must get on to our live stream and we can work on this audio spectrum indicator kit, which has got loads of parts, but I've been putting that off because we're a bit busy. However, in preparation for that, I got this, the solder gun. Now, the reason I got this is because using a small soldering iron like this and your normal end feed solder is great, but if you've got a lot of through-hole components, it can be time-consuming because they do need quite a lot of solder and quite a lot of heat, and it's tedious if you've got a lot of them to do. Whereas, of course, if you're doing tiny micro electronics in your microscope, you don't need that kind of setup. So I saw this on the eBay, and I believe it was £13. Let's call it 20, shall we? It's around that mark. And I thought, if this works, it might just be what I need. And it seemed to have quite a lot of interesting accessories. Oh, I didn't really dwell too much on the box. It just says solder gun, external heat made in China. And oh, there's some things here. Tin inlet window. I really think we can figure this out without the instructions. However, we know they're there. So it comes with a couple of tweezers, and these are quite good, aren't they? I mean, they're quite sharp tipped, so that's very nice. If you don't have tweezers, you now have tweezers. If you don't have a solder sucker, you now have a solder sucker, and look at that. It does the job. I've never seen this little bayonet fitting before on a solder sucker, but look, it works fine. Perfect. I'm always happy to have spares. It's really light though, super light. Aluminium. You have a roll of solder that's 0.8 mil. I think that's about what I generally like to use. Yeah, that's good. But it's a very small roll, so I'd keep the spool in case you need to re-spool that. Generally, I buy bigger spools than that, so be careful. You've got the gun itself. And that's the answer to the question. I was wondering if it extrudes the solder like a glue gun, yeah, which is a bit like this, where you're basically pulling the trigger and it's pulling the glue in. You can see that mechanism at the top just pulls the glue in and just shoves it into the end of the old one. Or if it was like a MIG welder and there was a motor or something in there. But I think at that price point, most of the people I quizzed got it right and said there's no chance of that being motorized. But you never know. In this day and age where you can buy really cheap motorized doodads for the kids, you know, for doing the 3D printing, it may well have done that. Now, before I plug it in, because it will obviously start to get hot, although look at that, it has an on-off switch on the top, which is cute. You never really see that. I am going to see how it works. So there is a panel here, which I think is really just crying out to be opened. Let's see if we can open it without breaking it. Again, we've got a price point here. It's infinitely breakable, and that is a brilliant mechanism. I love that. Look at that. It's literally just a cogs gear, and every time you squeeze it, it ratchets it on. It only goes in one way. So you can just keep going bang, 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 give me more, give me more, give me more. Let's see how you put tension on it. Pushing that in releases tension, so that's how you load it. If you use an extruder on a 3D printer, that's what you do there. And the adjustment's going to be there. Fine. I think we've got that sussed. I'm going to put this back on and pretend we are going to be loading it blind, because that'd be nice if you can, so you don't have to dismantle it every time. So just taking a tiniest bit of care here. I don't want to damage the solder. It does feel like only the thinnest of loop on there. I think the plastic, you can see there, it's only almost one bit of solder deep. I suspect that's to look good in pictures, but it can't be more than, doesn't even have a length on it, but it really is only probably a few meters of solder. But that's fine. Again, you keep the spool so you can re-spool it. Let's grab an end. End found. And it's really quite nasty solder. I can tell that already just from feel, but that's okay. Not expecting much. So that slides on there clearly, and we'll undo this. That's a bit of a faff though, isn't it, having a nut and a bolt to undo, but what can you do? If you've got a 3D printer and you like this device, there's no doubt you've got an infinite way of holding these in. In fact, I'm more inclined, I did see on my shelf a bunch of cotter pins. I think I'd push through a cotter pin in. There we go. Actually, that was all right. I mean, as long as that doesn't unwind itself, which actually it will. So put your nut and bolt on the other side so that as that spins, it doesn't try to loosen it. Now, before I attach that, I'm just going to poke this through, pushing this, see if it goes through. And it might come out the other end if we're lucky. If it's gone right, it'll come out the other end. If it's gone wrong, and I think it has gone wrong, let's see, it'll be all coiled up inside this mechanism. So yeah, just like a MIG welder. No, it actually is going through that internal funnel into the end here. So maybe it's just getting stuck up on the end. So I'm going to crank it. Whoa! Look at that, and I can't actually retract it. So I think to retract it, I'll have to push the button in, and then I'll be able to push it. Yes, good. We're learning. I think it's time to plug this in while I fettle the last bit. So let's plug that in there. In fact, let's just spool it up so it's out of the way. I can't see how this can't work, to be honest with you. The only bit you're going to have limitation on is that there's no temperature control on this iron, but that's fine. Really thick cable. I mean, that's reassuring, isn't it, for something that you're going to put some current on. And let's see while that's heating what adjustments you have. So you've got this here, which if we can loosen it, does it? Oh, okay, so that controls that there. So you can move that aperture around. I would think you want to make sure it's into the body like it was. And in fact, look at the tip. That looks like it's kind of more or less where you want it. So you probably don't really need to do too much adjustment. They clearly adjusted it out of the factory. So while that's heating, oops, I did note when I laid it down that the tip touches the bench. Not great. So yeah, make sure you've got something like this, like a rest, to pop that on while you're sorting your stuff up. Now, I've got a bit of like a Vera board stuff, but I don't think it's particularly useful because it's the one that just has the holes and not the lines. So we're going to put some shrapnel in here as a test. So we've got some resistors. Now, I tend to solder through hole from the top. I like to design boards with through hole plated holes and or vias. It's not really a via if it's not going anywhere. Let's see what else we've got. We've got some other miscellaneous things, and because I like to put them on a pot or something like that. I'll show you what I mean. But I'll touch these up from the top and from the bottom when I'm done. But I like to tack them from the top for sure if I can. So there, I don't think there's any negative reason to not do it that way. So look, I put them on my little pot like that so they sit, and then I solder. So let's check if this is warm enough now. Now I'll just uncoil the wire a little bit. Yes, out of the way. Oh! Did you see that? Look. Look at that. Now, I'm going to think you're going to need to really get this tinned up, so I'm going to wipe it a bit. Now let's see, I'll zoom in close so we can have a look at this. So we've got our through hole resistor there. I'm going to put the tip there. Actually that did work. So it actually flowed down the end of the soldering iron. So let's see again. That did work. I think, if I'm honest, I probably would like it to come a bit further out to the tip. So let's see if there's a tiny bit more adjustment here. I'm just wiggling it. Look, that's about as close to the tip as you can get. Ooh. Let's try another one. Oh, that is good. So, little technique there is that I put the soldering iron on one side of that component, and then when I push the solder, it pushes it into the junction and does the job. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, I'm not getting a motion. In fact, the wheel is spinning, but it's not coming out the end. So that is a bit of bad news. So I'm going to try to retract it. Oh, it's snapped. I can feel it snapped. Not good. In fact, I've got an internal coil up. Something we're going to have to clear before we can continue. So let's see how we might do such a thing. I'm going to attack it directly. Oh, there we go. Just pull that bit out. Now, where is our fresh wire? Just going to turn this. I mean, it was always a danger, isn't it? But let's see. So I'm just going to make sure that's straight. Just like a bloody 3D printer, eh? Yeah, so if you've got an issue there where it's going in, it's just going to keep coiling up. But now you've got the added danger of holding a hot soldering iron in your hand. Come on now. Let's see if I can guide it through. Oh, here we go. I think we're good. I think I'll probably just leave this panel off mostly if I was using it though. Because chances are it's going to jam up every now and then. Anyway, right, where were we? Okay, so we were trying our special technique. How many cranks? This doesn't bode well actually. I was doing quite a lot of cranks and it wasn't coming through. Yeah, it's all there. Not entirely sure what the problem was, but I pulled it out, refed it through, it was working again. So let's get our pot of doom, look at our component here. I'm going to give it a clean. I actually made it dirtier by trying to clean it. There we go. Yes, I really like this. This is definitely the future, the way to go. Now let's attack it from the back. So this is the normal way you would normally deal with something like this. So let's have a look. We're going to solder this one here. Oops, I totally missed that. It's alright, I saved it though. You need a lot less hands, actually, I think. Oops. Yep, just hold it on the pin just for a little bit to heat it. I mean, that's no different than doing it by hand anyway. So just hold it for a second and then feed. I think for 13 quid, this is an absolute bargain. You're getting a soldering iron and an extra set of hands. Now, it might not be your daily driver for your surface mount stuff, but actually, that's okay. Now, it did start to coil up again. I'm really not happy about that. I wonder why it's getting jammed up here. So I think you've got to be a little bit careful. I think I'm overdoing it with the end so that the solder is pushing against something that's not hot enough, and then as I'm cranking this, it's kinking it in the tube, and that's where all your disasters are coming from. I fixed it again. Now let's see if we get any more joy out of it. I've got some new components, but just to show you, that's how much solder you waste each time. So try not to knacker yourself. So I've got a capacitor here. Let's pop out your capacitor. Pop it on this board, like so. I'll hold it there now. So this is the perfect thing where you're going to say, right, I've actually got only one hand free because I'm holding something. Imagine you're a vehicle. I think this could be quite good for automotive, to be honest, if you've got room. So let's get this on there. So I'm going to hold it on there for a few moments before feeding the solder. Yeah, look, there you go. That was it. It's just impatience, really, on my part. That did a great job. I mean, this is an amazing tool. Amazing tool for 13 quid. Okay, and the last test, something that really sucks, and I have to solder a lot of things on with pin headers. So you can see there's a load of pin headers. In fact, too many pin headers. You never want to have to deal with this many pin headers. And I'm going to hold it in with my finger, which is always a bit dodgy because you get burnt. And I'm going to hold it in the middle to hold the two. It's two separate sets, which is a bit unusual. You wouldn't normally fit them that way, but it's awkward and annoying. And that's what we want to see. If we can do... Oop, someone's pinging me. If we can do awkward and annoying in a better way. So I'm going to try. That one worked right away. I don't know if you saw that, but let's repeat the exercise here. I'm just going to take a random pin. And you can see that, that's actually one that I'm holding. So you can see now they're both held in nicely. And then we can start attacking them. Yep, that was okay. I think I could have done that one a little bit better actually. So I'm going to take a different angle. Yeah, so it's hard to show it in filming, but it's better to hold them down like this so the solder's flowing down into the joint. I'll try to do my best with this angle. Let's try it again. So you might just see a bit of smoke. Yeah, that's pretty good. You'd think holding something, you think holding something like a gun would be an issue because, you know, you've got less control, but it's absolutely fine. That is good. I mean, that's awesome. I'm going to try, ouch. I'm going to try a different way. Let's try sideways feed, if that will work. So I'm just going to clean the tip sideways. I don't think we've got too much room. So you'd always have to be careful. No, because of the angle that the solder's hitting the tip, you kind of... Sorry, I do apologise for the cut there, but so many people pinging me these days. Right, so I've adjusted the solder feed just to see if I can get a better thing on sideways. And still needs a tweak. Okay, so that's a little tweak. Let's see if the tuning's worked. Oops. Not, I don't know, it's not soldering that one. In fact, it's because I dwelled too long that I mashed up that pin. I'd have to put that back in. Not so good, but I don't want to blame the soldering iron for that. That was just me experimenting a lot on that second pin. Let's just jump ahead to the next one. Yep. 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 Oop, a bridge. There we go. Yep. Ah, so close. So close to all of them. Let's keep going. Little bridge on that one. Fixed it. Yeah, I think I could get used to this. That is not bad at all. I think with a little bit of adjustment here, and then once you've really got it dialed in, you can just turn that quite tightly because you don't really want it moving. And there is another nut here that probably stops it twisting to get that ultimate setup. But you can see on that tip there, depending on how you have it, you can get it right there. Interesting. Now looking at it too, it does look like it's got pretty standard elements. Let's let it cool down and we'll just unscrew this and have a little butcher's at what's in there, because chances are if that is a standard element in there, you'll be able to get different tips to work on here. And I suspect if you get a nice little chisel tip, I really like the chisel tip, by the way. I am all about the chisel tips. I think you're going to get really good results because the solder you can make hit the flat of the chisel, and just by holding the side of the chisel to the thing and hit it on the flat, the solder just drips right down to that point. Admittedly, it's not cooled down yet, but I'm a bit impatient, so is this off? Yeah. Okay. Be a bit gentle. There we go. Now that looks pretty standard to me for various tips we've used in the past. And I'm just going to pop that there. Let's see like that. Yeah. So you should be able to get replacements for those. Pretty standard fit. I used to exclusively use a Rolson style soldering station, and that, ouch, I'm pretty sure use these exact same. So it's just sort of generic Far East cheap soldering iron tips. Absolutely nothing wrong with them at all. The only difference is, by the way, I used to just buy replacement irons, which were the tips, the iron and the wire for the soldering station, because I could never get these off properly. I'd be using them for like a year or two continuously, and they'd just get jammed in. And then eventually when I'd snap it off, it would literally break something else. So maybe every now and then just have a little loosener, tightener. That it will last a long time. I wouldn't really worry too much about it. Not really, unless you're doing some industrial use of this. And if you are, you can afford to buy another one, right? Get a spare or two if you need. So, would I recommend this for £30? Absolutely. Would I recommend it for £20? Yes, absolutely. Would I recommend it for £25? Yeah, probably. That'd probably be my cut-off, to be honest with you. £25. Although, fair, it actually is quite well made. It's actually really good. I know it doesn't necessarily look it in the video, and the plastic quality is not like out of this world, but they made a fair stab at it, and to be honest, it does what it says on the tin. Once you've dialed it in, the clogs really don't seem to happen anymore. And just stop trying to force the solder into something that's not hot enough. I mean, another thing, by the way, that you can do, which is a potential, I mean, you try it out and let me know, is use a much thinner solder wire. I mean, that is quite a thick wire, and you think maybe it's thick to get through the tube. But on the other hand, there's not really too much things in there to cause drag on that. It's a 0.8mm thing. I reckon you might get away with 0.5 or 0.4 even, and that won't suffer the same issue of the lack of melting. And again, depending on the quality of the solder, you've got here, for example, a higher quality solder. And I can tell you just from feel, they feel totally different. So that's the one that came with it on the right, and then the high quality one on the left. You probably can't see it, but this is much softer, and I think it's got far higher sort of maybe resin count, maybe more kind of softer material. You know what I mean? It will melt faster, I can promise you that. This one will melt faster now. There. So yeah, think about it, go buy it, let me know down below if you were going to go out and buy one, and I'll try to put links. Thanks for watching.